Yankees, of course, are the Yankees. And who knows with the Boston Red Sox, they called up Rich Hill, but Rays were basically sellers. And then there's the Toronto Blue Jays. So to explain about the state of the Blue Jays, joining us here up on the show, Brayden Ewasko. So I guess we can admit for many Blue Jay fans, because again, I love Vlad Jr., I love Bo Bichette, and I love George Springer and a couple other pieces. But it seemed to me like this division really is like competitive at the end of the day. The Orioles have beefed up to where they've got a lot of young pieces on this roster. They're ready to compete. The Yankees, of course, are the Yankees. They're going to spend whatever, and then they've got Aaron Judge. So when you look at the state of the AL East and coming in from the start of this year for the Toronto Blue Jays, I mean, the expectations were I thought this team would have been competitive, but it's kind of taken a different turn. What have you seen from the state of the Blue Jays this year to kind of explain, the whole state of this season?
Yeah, where to start is the big question. I think you have to take a look at the offseason to start the year, right? The Toronto Blue Jays have high expectations coming off the season prior, and there was just no moves made. The Shohei Ohtani deal was up in the air. We weren't sure what was happening. Some of us believed it. Some of us thought it was just a runaround, and that's what it turned out to be. And then there was no plan B. There was no plan C. And then we end up getting guys like Justin Turner, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, and so on. So this season just started off on a sort of a bad note with the fans, with I think them seeing, okay, there's a problem here. We didn't sign a power bet that this Toronto Blue Jays team needed. And then we get into the season and Vlad starts off weak. Bo starts off weak. You're pretty much relying on Davis Schneider to carry your team, who has been hitting 150 for the past 60 days. Just not a guy that you can consistently go to. Then you take a look at sort of how the season progresses. You think, wow, this team's down in the dumps. George Springer's nowhere to be found. And all of a sudden, George Springer finds life from I don't even know where from, and he starts playing amazing baseball. You get to the trade deadline, it's over. I think everybody thinks, okay, this team's screwed. There's no coming back. And now they start to give you a little bit more life. It's a very weird team. The fan base is very volatile, and they react quickly. And just going forward, it's going to be interesting to see sort of how the season ends. I think if it ends on a high note, I could see Ross Atkins not being fired, running it back, and doing very little in the offseason once again and letting the fans down again.
Yeah, and it's hard, man, because honestly, I mean, watching this Blue Jays organization, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, you're talking about, the good old days of, the 92-93, back-to-back year when they won the World Series with Joe Carter's big-time home run. And then, of course, you fast forward where I watched them in 2015 when they got the Josh Donaldson deal, and it would seem like there's some that's really cooking that this organization is going to be very relevant for a long time. But, when you look at it, I mean, I've loved the pieces that have come in this organization. And so talking about that with one piece in particular who I believe with what it seems like, he ain't going nowhere, and that's Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I mean, he's leading the Blue Jays in every category right now. So when you think about this season, because there were some spurts where he had some injury problems, but then eventually when he got back into this lineup, little slow to start with, but then he kind of caught fire. How have you really explained, Vlad Jr. and just kind of where the him and the Blue Jays stand at this?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is there's no contract extension in talks right now, it doesn't seem like. So that's concerning, but I think everybody knows what's going on. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was pretty much bred to be the face of the Toronto Blue Jays, and that's what he's being. I mean, we just had the discussion on the podcast yesterday about, how good is Vladimir Guerrero Jr.? Where does he rank in the AL? And I think everybody pretty much had him sitting at number 3, right behind Aaron Judge and Bobby Witt Jr. But Vlad is just a monster. They will get the deal done. They're going to just have to fork over the most money ever outside of Shohei Ohtani. He needs to be paid. And he will continue to do this. He will continue to be one of the best players. I mean, last 30 days, Vlad's hitting over 400. And on the season, he's hitting over 330 right now. He's a guy that's just unstoppable. If he didn't have the slow start, he would be in talks with Aaron Judge right now. And people would be having that debate. And I know that's maybe crazy for some Yankees fans to hear, but they would be on the same pace without that first month of the season.
Yeah. And, the one thing I looked at with the Blue Jays is my biggest concern. And like for most teams I talk about is that you could have, a stellar lineup like what we've seen, even when we had, Matt Chapman and Marcus Semien at one point before they ended up moving on. And then they're bringing in a lot of these young pieces. But you got to have a pitching staff at the end of the day. Now, I love the fact that when they got Jose Berrios, I think the kid, there was some of those talks where I think if he's got his control down and he stays healthy, the guy is going to be an absolute ace. But then when you start to go down the rotation, it's mixtures of guys that are capable of following up after Berrios. And then there's guys that are kind of middle of the pack. Has there been kind of some question marks on, the pitching staff as a whole that maybe they could address during the offseason?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I think when we look at the starting rotation, and me and Carter have had this debate on our podcast, is how does this starting rotation rank up? I think you look, Kevin Gausman is just a beast. Jose Barrios, unbelievable. Chris Bassett is going to give you that third pitcher sort of games every time. He's very consistent. You know exactly what you're going to get. And he's a guy that's perfect for that role. Then you go lower and you look at Alek Manoah, who's out with injury till the beginning of next season. Who, if he can come back hot, I mean, that's another amazing piece. And then Bowden Francis looked really good, starting to find his role. You got Yariel Rodriguez inked for 4 more years after this one. So there's a lot of pieces in the starting rotation that are very solid. And I think it gets overlooked because the games go to the bullpen and it's completely blown wide open and they give up a ton of runs. That's where the problem is. The bullpen needs to be addressed because you can't be giving up 2-3 runs and then, expect to win that game when you go to a bullpen that's just completely underperforming.
Yeah, no, I agree. And especially, I mean, hell, even if you can get back a guy like, a Marco Estrada or even just somebody in the middle of that pack that can keep the lead on their side and then shut it down in the ninth, that's initially, one of the biggest gets that you could want in any major league team. Yeah, I want to revisit the Yusei Kikuchi trade because I think at the end of the day, the Blue Jays got a lot back, and I was very surprised because you would have never thought an organization like the Houston Astros would have honestly have been okay with this deal. And then when I look at the get back for the Toronto Blue Jays, recap with me that trade because I think initially you got some good prospects that are looking very promising and something that could help out the Blue Jays in the long run.
Yeah, so I mean, when it first got announced, it was just Jake Bloss. And Jake Bloss, very promising. He's number 1 in the Blue Jays pipeline right now, and he looks amazing. Well, I went back and I was watching some of his games in AAA. He looks so good. And that's what we originally thought. It was just the deal. Yusei Kikuchi for Jake Bloss. Astros fans were mad about that. I was even thrilled with just Jake Bloss. Then, as we sort of continue through the live stream that we did that day on the Yusei Kikuchi trade, then we find out that Joey Lopervito is coming over. Will Wagner. Joey Lopervito has had games in the MLB already, and he's looked pretty solid, and he's only gotten better since becoming a Toronto Blue Jay. Will Wagner. I mean, he's a kid with a lot of promise. We've seen him play very, very well for this team when he's gotten called up, and he looks like an explosive piece as well. I think he was ranked I think it was low 20s in the Blue Jays pipeline when he was in that. Now, obviously, he's playing with the team, and he looks even better than we could have imagined.
Yeah, that's why I was like, when I saw that trade initially and I started to see the get back that the Toronto Blue Jays got, I was like, wow, how did they even manage to get this kind of return? The fact that the Astros, I mean, yeah, they needed some pitching. They needed some sort of help. But at the end of the day, I just kind of felt like that was one that the Blue Jays knew they kind of fleeced with that because they get a bunch of those guys. So I'm excited for watching them in their future with this organization. So, of course, the question mark, because during the trade deadline, I noticed, some teams like the Tampa Bay Rays. It felt to me like they were blowing this thing up. Isaac Paredes and Randy Arozarena is gone, and they still managed to keep Yandy Diaz, but who knows how long that he'll still be there. I just kind of feel like they're resetting a bunch of things and hoping that some of their star power, like a Shea McClanahan and a couple others, they come back healthy and so on and so forth. When I heard some of the buzzes of the Toronto Blue Jays during the trade deadline, there were names that were thrown out there like Bo Bichette that people I just felt like this trade deadline was a little strange. Like it was like these were guys that you don't know that are proven that are going to bolster your way in through October. These kind of felt like 1-2 year rental guys. I mean, how have you seen the trade deadline, and how did the Toronto Blue Jays really kind of take that during that time?
For the Toronto Blue Jays, it was a very, very weird trade deadline because, I mean, we covered this team every single day and we didn't know what was going to happen. So I think as a fan, if you're just tuning in and seeing guys fly off the board, the rumor mill was absolutely churning. And yeah, guys like Bo Bichette, I mean, there's been talks around him not wanting to come back, not wanting to extend the contract. So in that case, we sort of thought, oh, well, if a deal comes in that blows the doors off the Toronto Blue Jays, maybe they do move Bo Bichette. There was talks about Vlad Guerrero Jr. halfway through the season as well. I feel like everything was on the table for a big deal if it was there. And I mean, I look at a lot of teams, and the Toronto Blue Jays were the strangest one out of everyone that was selling and buying because you didn't know what was going to happen. And now looking to the offseason, I think that Bo Bichette trade is still a possibility and a very good one. If they can't figure out a contract with Bo in this offseason, I think there's a very, very strong possibility that he gets moved.
Now, if that becomes the case, is there a potential next man up that might potentially fill in that role at shortstop?
Not a good one. Not a good one. You go from having a guy like Bo Bichette, who everybody rags on for being not very good defensively, but this year and last year, he was, I don't want to say he was amazing. He was fine. He was good enough for the bat he was giving you. This year, the bat was very cold. He's a very emotionless guy on the field as it is, but it seemed even worse this season. And I don't necessarily know that there's a replacement for Bo Bichette's bat. I mean, as much as you want to look up and down this lineup with the prospects, some of these guys just aren't ready yet, and they need a couple more years to develop. So we'll have to wait and see. It's going to have to be a huge, huge offseason. Ross Atkins has said many times that he still wants to compete next season. And if you still want to compete, then you have to be willing to spend the money in the offseason to get some free agents. There's a lot of free agents out there this year. One guy in particular that I want to see them sign is Anthony Santander. I think they should give him the bag and try to get him to come because they need a power bat. They need somebody that can hit some home runs. It's just going to be interesting to see. It all depends, I think, on what happens with that Bo Bichette deal. If they can get him signed, if they have to make him trade, if they have to make a trade, that's where it's going to depend on. And then I think they're going to have to pivot. It's going to be like last season with the Shohei Ohtani, where they didn't pivot post that deal. And then they sort of just floundered for a while. And I think if Bo Bichette gets traded and they aren't expecting that, and then they feel like they're going to flounder again. If they can get that deal made, knowing what's going to happen, having a plan going through the offseason, that's going to be huge for this team.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch them during the offseason because, yeah, I mean, there are going to be some teams. And what's funny about this is like outlooking the Toronto Blue Jays is like when I think of their record and where they sit at, I mean, they're capable of competing more than the White Sox and like all the other teams that are like just far below. But I mean, if you could juice this lineup up and even get, some quality pitching in the bullpen to at least help out to secure those runs at the end of the day, I think the Blue Jays would be in good shape. I was kind of surprised, initially because the AL East, for the last, I mean, I've been a baseball fan since I was at diapers. And so I've always been so familiarized with the Yankees, the Red Sox competing. And then, of course, there were short spurts where Tampa and Toronto, they competed as well in this division. When you kind of see this shift over, because this is also to how big the competition is really gaining in the AL East. Is that kind of something in the back of their minds, knowing with the GM, he wants to be competitive, but as far as competitiveness, I mean, yeah, you got to spend the money, but you also got to have quality pieces in the right spots, right?
Yeah, and when you look at this division, I mean, the Baltimore Orioles have been building to this for so many years, and I think that like everyone has seen that they were going to be good. And sure enough, here they are being good. They took the time, they did the work, they put in the work with the prospects, and they've panned out. The Toronto Blue Jays will not rebuild, and they're going to do everything in their power not to go down that road, even though when you look at the Yankees, you look at Baltimore, I mean, there's just as much money as you want to spend, as much money as you want to throw at the problem, I don't necessarily believe that it's going to have you beat out the Orioles or the Yankees. It's just not going to happen. And that's not saying with guys leaving like Bo Bichette. If Bo Bichette sticks around, maybe that gives you more of an option to build around. You have to hope that George Springer can continue his success from sort of, the last little bit here into next season. And and you're praying for that. And you're praying that the starters all stay healthy. You're praying that some more guys in the bullpen don't get injured like we saw this year. You're hoping for a bounce back from Erik Swanson. There's just a lot of hoping and praying right now. And if you're in the Toronto Blue Jays organization, and that's never a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, finally, October baseball, it's my favorite time of the year because that's when everything in the regular season, it all now comes to fruition to where you're set, the stage is set, there's no excuses. And in the end of the day, you are seeing from the roster build from top to bottom how deep they get until they get into the Fall Classic, of course. So I'm sure you've had a bunch of memories with this Blue Jays organization. I mean, I loved the 2015 year with the Joey Bats bat flip against the Texas Rangers. I mean, how important for our audiences to get a preview of this October baseball postseason, how important that is for any organization that represents like just the grit, the atmosphere. I mean, that just gives you goosebumps at the end of the day. Like each pitch is thrown.
Yeah, you know what? I always go back to this. You know what? I even throw the 2015 game on. I throw the series on. I'll just sit there all day on a day off, and I'll rewatch it. That's how much of a crazy Blue Jay fan I am. And there is nothing like it. I always say, out of any playoffs, the World Series atmosphere is so uncomparable. I'm a huge hockey guy. I love my football, but even the Stanley Cup Finals for me doesn't bring me the same joy of sitting there. It's the seventh inning. It's a tie ball game, and one swing of the bat, it can change everything. It's completely different. The atmosphere, half the time when you're watching, and I remember that 2015 game with Joey Bats, and when he hits that home run, the cameras you can't even see the ball. The camera's shaking so much. If that atmosphere, if you're a fan of one of these teams, I mean, go watch a team like the Baltimore Orioles. I bet you it's going to be very similar this season with them in the playoffs. I could even see sort of the Kansas City Royals with the same thing. They're sort of, a little bit not the favorite to win. And I think they could go on a little bit of a run. And if they do that, it's going to be electric with Bobby Witt or Gunnar Henderson or Adley Rutschman, some of those guys. It's, as much as I'm a Blue Jays fan, I'm a baseball fan just in general. So I'm going to be tuned in, and I'm going to be so excited, so thrilled to be watching some October baseball.
Yeah, I'm excited about it because at the end of the day, I mean, you have like your Dodgers, your Yankees of the world, but then there's also sprinkling Kansas City, Baltimore, some surprise teams that might actually, come in and like a surprising run. We've seen that multiple times. I mean, look at the Arizona Diamondbacks. They came in where they were so bad, but then they clicked, and then they beat the Phillies, they beat the Dodgers, and it was a surprise. So I love moments like that with some teams, but that's pure dedication to rewatching the series. And yet just, what it is? It's like every single team that's out there, they got their eyes on the prize. Even if that means you got to rewatch it, you got to feel it and just get hungry with it. So kudos to you, man. I love that because I do the same. I tend to do the same thing when it comes to that for all my respective teams, but it's another time. But yeah, I'm excited for October baseball. I think we're really going to get some fun, fun, action-packed, but at the same time, I mean, finally Shohei Ohtani will be in the postseason. So that is one I'm curious to watch. And then at the same time, will we get a Dodger Yankee? And for your thought, Is that possible? And what would be your thought if we ever got a Dodger-Yankee World Series? Because my big thing, all jokes aside, I feel like that is when our economy crashes because of just how expensive that it is, right?
You know what? I was down in New York this year for the Dodgers and the Yankees series when Teoscar Hernandez hit the grand slam. And what an atmosphere. Again, I will never cheer for the Yankees. I was wearing a Dodgers jersey just to piss Yankees fans off. And it was just a completely different atmosphere. The fan bases are yelling at each other in the stands, battling it out. You know what? If it comes down to that, I don't know if there would be a more electric finish to a World Series than those two teams. It would be just outstanding.
Oh God, man. I can only imagine how much, prices on nosebleed seats would literally be like. I feel like there'd be like 5-6 grand or something like that. I mean, how can anybody have, the money in the world to even afford that? I mean, that's part of my life savings from there. So that'd be wild if we had that kind of World Series. But appreciate you for coming on by, Brayden. Where can people find you to get everything they need to know in the 6 in Toronto for those Blue Jays?
Yeah, you can check us out. Locked On Blue Jays on YouTube or anywhere you listen to podcasts. We also have a TikTok page, Locked On Blue Jays, or Instagram. And obviously we have shorts as well, all on Locked On Blue Jays. Then you can follow me on Twitter at Brayden5 Ewasko. I try to keep posting every so often, but then I get a little bit disheartened with the Blue Jays, and then the Twitter dies for me. So you can check me out there as well. And Carter as well, my co-host Carter First. You can check him out on Twitter as well, Carter First too. It should be an interesting sort of end of the season, into the off season for the Blue Jays. So if you're a Blue Jays fan, definitely come on by.
Absolutely, man. You guys are locked on. You guys have been doing amazing work. I've had multiple people that have been on here giving their insights, and it don't even matter the sport. At the end of the day, they're coming in, they're on the grind, and they are basically making quality content at the end of the day. So you guys have been really kicking butt lately, and I've had a bunch of other people in other networks, so it's been great to get insights up on the show. Appreciate the time for you coming on by here, man. Enjoy the rest of the weekend, a Labor Day weekend as well. I'm out in a disclosed area in Colorado. I'm going to be camping out, recollecting my thoughts because next week it's on, man, with the NFL season. So,
yeah, I'm with you. I'm just preparing for it. I'm going down to Minneapolis this weekend for the Twins Jays series, so I'll be down there. But then, I'm fully into fantasy. I got a bunch of drafts, and I'll be ready to rock for the NFL season.
Tell you, man, Toronto is on my bucket list of places to really visit. So, and I've been hearing a lot of different things. It's a totally different culture. You're up north in Canada, and so it's interesting, man. So, but again, like I said, it's just one of those things. Can't wait to book it soon. So, appreciate you, man. Enjoy the rest of the week, and we shall see you soon and how the Blue Jays will favor during the offseason, man. Take care of yourself.
Thanks, you too. I really appreciate having me on. This was an absolute blast.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for coming.